If you woke up today and thought this offseason was going to be calm, think again, because the biggest domino for the San Francisco 49ers just started wobbling, and it's a massive one. We're talking about Trent Williams. No guaranteed money left on his deal, nearly a $39 million cap hit, and he'll be 38 years old when the season kicks off. That's not just a storyline, and that's a franchise-altering situation. Here's the reality. It is not realistic for Trent Williams to play under that current number. It just isn't. The cap hit is enormous, the guarantees are gone, and at his age, the front office has to be strategic. But let me be clear about something. Losing Trent Williams would be a disaster for this football team. You already know the offensive line has issues. Center has been inconsistent. Left guard has been a weak point. And when you talk to people around the league, and this isn't just fan talk, the message is consistent. If the 49ers want to close the gap on teams like Seattle, if they want to get back to championship form, they have to improve the offensive line. Now imagine trying to do that without your Hall of Fame left tackle. That's why this negotiation matters so much. John Lynch said he's met with Trent and his agent. He described the conversations as productive, substantive, positive. He emphasized that Trent loves being a Niner. The organization loves having him. And now it's about threading the needle. That's an interesting phrase. Threading the needle tells you this is delicate. It tells you there are real numbers involved, real compromise required. But here's the encouraging part. Lynch sounded confident. Not defensive, not uncertain, confident. And that matters. Because if this falls apart, you're not just replacing a left tackle. You're replacing leadership. You're replacing identity. You're replacing the one offensive lineman who still plays at an elite level when healthy. So let me ask you something directly. If you're running the front office, do you restructure and bring Trent back on a new deal? Yes or no? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to know where you stand, because this decision defines the offseason. And if you're new here and you want straight, no-fluff 49ers analysis like this every single week, make sure you're subscribed. We're building something strong here, and we're pushing toward 2,000 subscribers. You being part of this community matters. Now, here's the bigger question. Even if they keep Trent, is that enough? Because the offensive line problems don't stop at left tackle. And when you zoom out, this roster has some structural decisions coming fast. Coaching changes, defensive identity shifts, wide receiver uncertainty, and that's where this thing really starts to get interesting. Let's talk about what else John Lynch revealed, because the next move might be just as important as the Trent situation. The bigger picture here is that even if the 49ers successfully restructure Trent Williams and keep him in red and gold, that alone does not fix what broke down last season. Because the reality is this offensive line didn't just struggle in one spot, it struggled in multiple areas, and it struggled at the worst possible times. You saw it late in the season, you saw it in big moments, interior pressure, communication breakdowns, inconsistent push in the run game. And when you talk to analysts around the league, when you listen to conversations coming out of the combine, one theme keeps popping up. Kyle Shanahan is an elite play designer, but why has the offensive line not been prioritized at the highest level? That question is getting louder. So here's where it gets interesting. If they keep Trent, they still need upgrades at center. They still need competition at left guard. And they need more depth overall. Because when injuries hit, this unit didn't have answers. That's not sustainable if you want to chase a Super Bowl. Now flip to the defensive side of the ball, because that's where one of the most important off-season decisions has already been made. Raheem Morris is in as defensive coordinator, and this wasn't a casual hire. This was a calculated move by Kyle Shanahan, someone he knows extremely well, someone John Lynch has known for decades, someone with real schematic versatility. Lynch called him an energy giver, a forward thinker, a coach with variety in his defensive background, including what he deployed with the Rams. And that's important. Because while the 49ers plan to continue running the wide nine front, they need adaptability. Last season, this defense finished dead last in sacks. Dead last? That is not 49ers football. Injuries played a role, no question, but structurally, they didn't generate pressure consistently. The wide nine works when you have waves of pass rushers hunting the quarterback. It collapses when depth disappears. So here's my question for you. Do you still believe in the wide nine as the identity of this EE defense, yes or no? Because if they stick with it, and all signs say they will, then personnel upgrades are mandatory. You can't run that system halfway. Before we go any further, quick timeout, because this channel doesn't grow without you. If you're part of the faithful, if you care about this team and you want real coverage that cuts through the noise, help us push toward 2,000 subscribers. Hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications so you don't miss anything as free agency unfolds. And if you really want to help fuel this thing, use the super thanks or hype feature on this video. That's not a donation, that's you fueling the quest for the next Super Bowl trophy. Every contribution helps improve production, expand coverage, and build this community stronger. We're building this together. The faithful move as one. Now let's keep going, because there's another major issue that John Lynch addressed, and this one might define how explosive this offense can actually be next season. The 49ers were one of the slowest offensive units in the league. That's not opinion, that's measurable. Separation was inconsistent. Injuries piled up in the receiver room, and when the offense stalled, it wasn't because of play design, it was because guys couldn't consistently win one-on-one. This team needs to get younger, faster, more explosive. That's been repeated internally and externally, which brings us to the wide receiver room. And this is where things start getting complicated. You've got young players like Jacob Cowing who haven't been able to stay on the field because of hamstring issues. You've got Ricky Pearsall battling through a PCL injury that lingered all season. Jordan Watkins has elite speed but hasn't taken that leap yet. And then there's the elephant in the room, Deebo Samuel. John Lynch made an interesting comment about possibly bringing back former players. It was subtle, it was quick, but it was there. And if you're reading between the lines, you know exactly who that might point to. The question is, should they? Because speed is declining. Explosiveness isn't what it used to be. The offense needs juice, and we haven't even touched Brandon Aiyuk yet. That situation, that one might be even more complicated than Trent Williams. Let's talk about it. Now we have to talk about the most uncomfortable situation on this roster, because no matter how you spin it, the Brandon Aiyuk situation has turned into a mess. And it didn't start that way. This was a first-round pick who developed beautifully. Every year he got better. Route running improved, separation improved, confidence grew. He became an all-pro level player. You watched him evolve into one of the most polished receivers in football. And then the contract saga happened. The lead-up wasn't clean. Public tension, social media noise, hold-in behavior, it felt unnecessary. And when he finally signed that massive extension, making him one of the highest paid receivers in the league, you expected a locked-in, dominant version of Brandon Aiyuk. Instead, the season started flat, out of shape, no rhythm, poor body language at times. And then disaster struck with the knee injury, ACL, MCL, meniscus structural damage, a brutal hit that changed everything. From that moment on, the timeline shifted. Here's where it gets even more concerning. Before the season, Aiyuk was present around the facility, in meetings, running routes, engaged. Then the 49ers voided his guarantees for 2026. They were clearly unhappy with how things were being handled, and since then, silence. The team reportedly hasn't heard from him in months. When John Lynch was asked about Aiyuk, his body language said more than his words. His face changed. His tone shifted. He carefully said nothing would happen until the new league year begins. That's not reassurance, that's pause. And when you read between the lines, it feels like the 49ers may move on. They would have to eat money. They would create some future flexibility. But culturally, that might be the bigger factor. This organization values alignment, commitment, buy-in. So I'm asking you straight up, if the league year opens and the 49ers cut Brandon Aiyuk, are you surprised? Yes or no? Drop your answer below, because this fan base is split right down the middle on this one. Now layer that into the Deebo Samuel conversation. There was a subtle hint from Lynch about possibly bringing back former players. Larry Kruger pointed it out, and you know exactly who that could mean. Deebo was productive in stretches elsewhere. He stepped up when needed, but he is not the 2021 version anymore, the explosive, positionless weapon who terrified defenses every snap. that version may not be coming back. The 49ers need speed, they need separation, they need players who can consistently win vertically. That's why the draft matters so much. This is considered a deep receiver class with multiple flavors. Big-bodied, possession guys, twitchy slot separators, vertical burners. If you're building around Brock Purdy, you cannot surround him with declining speed. You need dynamic weapons on cost-controlled deals. That's how championship windows stay open. And then there are the in-house development bets. Ricky Pearsall needs to stay healthy. The PCL injury lingered all season. He kept aggravating it. That affected his play. His body type raised some concerns coming out of college, and durability now becomes a storyline. Jacob Cowing has elite speed but can't stay on the field. Jordan Watkins runs in the 4.3s but hasn't carved out a consistent role. If even one of those players takes a step forward, it changes the equation. If two of them hit, suddenly you're talking about real offensive juice. But that's projection, not certainty, which is why free agency and the trade market are being watched so closely. And that brings us to one of the loudest whispers at the Combine right now, a name that would instantly fix the pass rush problem, Max Crosby. Let's talk about it. Max Crosby's name is not circulating quietly, it's loud, it's persistent, and when rumors refuse to die at the Combine, there's usually a reason. The Raiders' general manager said he expects Crosby to be on the roster. That's the public stance. But you and I both know that expects and guarantees are two very different things in this league. And when you look at the context, you start to understand why the speculation exists. Crosby has played his heart out on a team that hasn't consistently competed. He battled through injury. He reportedly didn't love being asked to sit late in the season. He's entering the phase of his career where winning matters more than rebuilding timelines. And if the Raiders are truly resetting with a new head coach and a rookie quarterback direction, that's not a one-year fix. That's a project. Now imagine pairing Max Crosby with a healthy defensive front in San Francisco. Imagine what that does to the wide nine. Imagine the ripple effect. Suddenly you're not last in sacks. Suddenly quarterbacks can't comfortably step up in the pocket. Suddenly the identity returns. The 49ers have shown interest before. That part matters. When there's smoke twice, you pay attention. The question becomes cost. It would take premium draft capital. It would likely take financial creativity. But if you're serious about getting back to a championship standard, those are the types of aggressive moves that shift a window back open. So let me ask you this. Would you trade significant draft capital for Max Crosby if it meant immediately fixing the pass rush? Yes or no? I want your honest answer. Now let's address something else that's been floating around. The electrical substation conversation. The idea that free agents might hesitate because of concerns about the facility. It became a headline. It became debate material. Even some players around the league commented on it. John Lynch addressed it directly, and he didn't sound worried. He leaned into the identity of the organization. Championship ownership, championship leadership, championship culture. And that's not fluff. When Robert Saleh talked about his time in San Francisco, he called it a championship operation from top to bottom. That's coming from someone who has seen multiple buildings, multiple franchises, multiple standards. That's the part that matters most, because at the end of the day, players want to win. They want stability. They want to compete for Lombardis. And despite the roster questions, despite the contract tensions, despite the injuries, this is still one of the most respected organizations in football. But respect alone doesn't win in January. This offseason is about decisions. Trent Williams, Brandon Aiyuk, Deebo Samuel, the wide receiver reset, the pass rush, the defensive identity. These aren't small tweaks. These are foundational moves that determine whether this team reloads or slides. And that's why you stay locked in right here. If you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time. We're pushing toward 2,000 subscribers, and this community only grows stronger with you in it. Every breakdown, every roster move, every rumor, we're covering it together as the faithful. Now tell me, do you feel confident about the direction of this team right now, or are you uneasy about how many big decisions are on the table? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read them. I respond. And this conversation matters, so here's your choice.